The world is in turmoil. 4 deadly diseases are sweeping across the globe. More and more cities are getting infected. Infection rates are ever increasing, and time is running out. But enough about the real world, let's talk Pandemic the board game. Welcome to Board Game Bananas, and this is my review. If you haven't had the pleasure of playing Pandemic previously, it's a cooperative board game in which you and your teammates are trying to cure the world of 4 deadly diseases before the time runs out. For more information on how to play, do see my How to Play video. One of the things I really like about this game is how original some of the game mechanics are. I know that's a slightly nerdy thing to bring up, but this game has a few mechanics that I haven't really seen in other games. For example, the way that we mix the epidemic cards into the playing cards, the way you divide it into 4 different piles, or 5 or 6, depending on how many cards you're playing with, and the way that they get shuffled in, it ensures that they occur at relatively regular intervals and that they're also relatively evenly spaced out. And I also really like the way that when an epidemic does occur, you end up shuffling these cards here and then placing them on top of the infection deck. Because then naturally cities that have already been infected are then at much greater risk of being infected again. This part I also think is quite true to the theme. You know, in reality, in real life, if a city's been infected previously and we still haven't found a cure, we still haven't eradicated that disease, then yeah, that city is more likely to become infected again. And apart from that, one of the things I really like about this game is that no matter how many times you play it, no matter how good you get at this game or how many times you save the world, there is always a very big sense of jeopardy. You always feel like with a few bad cards, a few bad moves perhaps, you always feel like the diseases can take over and that you're only 1 or 2 bad moves away from losing, or a little bit of bad luck away from losing. It's one of the things that this game gets absolutely spot on. It's one of the things that makes the game difficult, but it's also one of the things that no matter how many times you play, you always feel like, oh hang on, I need to be on top of my game here. One of the biggest tips that I can give when you're playing this game is to play like you're already losing. Even in the very beginning, even if you think that you're on top of it and you think that you're finding cures and that you're curing diseases left, right and centre, play like you're losing. There's always that rush, that sense of jeopardy, that sense of, oh my god, we have to get on with it and we have to do well here. On the negative side, this won't come as a shock to anybody who's played the game, but it is a very difficult game, probably too difficult in my opinion. The thing is, each turn you're infecting minimum of 2 cities, assuming the infection rate is at 2 and assuming that you don't have an outbreak. So minimum 2 of these dice are entering the board each turn. And that means that just to stay on top of the disease, 2 of your 4 actions on average have to be used to cure diseases, and then also you've got to move around the city so that you're in a position to cure the most optimum 2 diseases. But the thing is, that's not even the objective of the game. So what is the objective of the game? When you boil it down to its absolute most basic of game mechanics, this is a game where the objective is to collect 5 cards in each colour 4 different times, then get to a research centre, and then cure one of the diseases. And you got to remember there are only 12 cards of each colour in the entire deck. You're only allowed 7 cards in your hand, so the odds of getting 5 of them in the same colour are very small. But now I'm just talking about, collecting the cards randomly, and, I'm obviously ignoring the fact that you can pass cards to each other. But the thing is, the rules for doing that are so restrictive. You've got to both be in the same city, and even then you can only pass the 1 card that is that corresponds to the city that you're both in. You're also using up quite a lot of actions in order to get into the same city, and in order to pass each other 1 individual measly little card. And the thing is, whilst you're doing that, the diseases are still spreading, outbreaks are still occurring, and suddenly you don't feel like you're on top of the spread anymore. I think for a cooperation game, that rule really does restrict how much cooperation you're actually able to do. And that does lead me nicely onto my second negative though. That rule that I just said, that you have to both be in the same city and then you can only pass one city card matching the city that you're in, that is true unless one of you is the researcher. This is a very, very powerful role to have. Then you just need to be in the same city and you can pass each other however many cards you like and whichever cards you like, within the 4 actions, of course. And that's one of the things that I really don't like about the game. If you're playing with the researcher, and also if you're playing with the scientist, where you only need 4 cards of matching colours, so long as you play with those 2 roles and then stick together quite closely so that you can easily meet in the same city and pass each other cards, then the game suddenly becomes really, really quite easy. And that's one of the things that I don't like, is that, you know, these cards, the role cards, are supposed to be shuffled and then dealt out randomly at the beginning of the game. So before you've even begun, it's a big factor in whether or not you're going to win the game has already been decided purely by chance before any player has even had a roll, or has even played a move, I should say. People have described this game as a good gateway game for people getting into board gaming, for people who are not already avid fans of board games. Personally, I disagree with that. I think if you were playing this game as somebody who's not an enthusiast of board games, so to speak, I think that, you know, you would be a bit too confused because the rules are relatively complicated. You are probably going to lose because this is quite a difficult game. And also, again, with the sense of jeopardy that only a few bad moves are going to ruin the game, you're going to feel like, oh no, it was my bad move and it was me being bad that meant that the whole team lost. And you're going to basically feel responsible for that. So in my opinion, this is really not a good gateway game in that regard whatsoever. I think a better gateway game would be something like Castle Panic, which I do have a video for on my channel. Although I do have to say, it was the first video I ever made. The sound's a little bit off, I filmed from a slightly weird angle, the video's far too long, so by all means have a look at that video, but it's not the best video I've ever made, let's put it that way. But all in all, I do really like this game, but I would only recommend it to more experienced board gamers. I would give this game a score of 4 out of 5 bananas. I think there are many aspects that I like. It's very replayable as well. And yeah, if you're an experienced board gamer, go for this game. You are going to enjoy it. But perhaps not with your friends who are, shall we say, less experienced. I'd love to know what you guys think though. Please leave me a comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. I've got many more videos planned for this channel. Maybe even some more pandemic ones. Stay tuned and we'll find out. But yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts. Take care, good luck, and hey, go and save the world. Enjoy.